Hey guys, so in today's video, it'll be interesting because I actually filmed it in March of last year. So before, everything started shutting down, it was, right in the very beginning. We were still planning on taking a trip to Disney. I filmed it probably the first week in March. I was gearing up to buy our Disney tickets. We were going to be going to FinCon last year in September, and we were going to make it a family trip and a Disney trip. And obviously none of that happened. We were also planning on going to Colombia at the end of last year. That didn't happen either. And I don't anticipate it's going to happen anytime soon. So I'll be interested to see what this video says when I edit it. I do know that since this time last year, we have created a vacation sinking fund, and we have a decent amount of money in it. We already have enough to make probably 2 trips down to Colombia at this point, but we are going to go ahead and keep on contributing to that because we want to be able to take trips as they come up, not necessarily based on how much money we have. So that is probably the biggest difference between today and whatever I said in this video, because we definitely are I think we're putting $300, $500 a month away for vacations. So we can just go wherever we want and do whatever we want at any time. And we always have the cash set aside. Oh, and I meant to tell you, right now it looks like we're probably going to have our next debt paid off next month. So be looking forward to a big debt update because this is going to be a big milestone one. Should you go on vacation if you have debt? This is a big debate, particularly in the somewhat judgmental side of the debt-free community. The die-hard debt snowballers say absolutely not, but are they right? We have taken a trip to Colombia, the country, not South Carolina, every year to 18 months-ish for our entire debt-free process. We went to visit Mauricio's family, and while we chose to do it, that doesn't mean it's right for everyone. So when trying to determine if traveling while paying off debt is right for you, there are several factors that you need to consider. Like, really sit down and put pen to paper and think about these. One is, where do you want to go? Is it a quick weekend trip, or are we talking like a 10-day luxury cruise? Or maybe you're going to visit family, or you have someone very close to you that is ill or elderly, and you maybe just want to go visit them. Where you are going is important to think about when you're planning a debt-free trip to decide if it's something that would be fiscally responsible. If you're just looking for a vacation, maybe where you're going doesn't matter. So you could choose a less costly trip, or maybe where you're going is going to be pricey, like our trip to Colombia, and you can opt for doing cheaper versions of the exact same trip. Last Christmas, Mauricio and I opted to take a weekend trip to see Christmas lights in Bristol, Virginia, stopping in Luray Caverns and Massanutten, rather than taking a big luxurious vacation. It wasn't an expensive trip by any stretch of the imagination, but it was an amazing getaway. Well, except for the fact that Melina came down with the stomach flu shortly after we got there. But, I digress. It was an amazing trip. It was super fun, and it would have been perfect if Melina hadn't gotten sick. And it was a great way to get away without spending a ton of money. The second factor to consider is this a once in a lifetime trip that will never ever happen again? Maybe it's like the 6th grade trip to Costa Rica, which is a real thing in my daughter's school, and we will be going on it. And absolutely, it will be written into the spending plan. Or maybe it's for a wedding, or there are a million things that could be once in a lifetime trips. So the goal would be to imagine yourself on your deathbed a year from now. If you will greatly regret not going on that trip, then maybe you actually should go on that trip. The third factor to consider is, what is the overall cost of the trip? Knowing more or less how much a trip is going to cost from the moment you leave your home to the moment you are walking back in the door is super important. It needs to be fairly accurate. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about the cost of the trip in a second. The fourth factor to consider is, will you be paying cash for the trip? Or are you going to be adding to your debt? If you're going to be charging your trip to a credit card and say, no, I'm going to take, 3 months to pay it off, it means you're going to be paying interest on the trip. The fifth factor to consider is, are you actively paying off debt aggressively? So maybe some of you who are watching aren't part of the debt-free community. So you might not know that it's not necessarily wise to use a credit card to travel unless you have plans of paying it off all in full the moment you get back. Because there are people that do that for points. It's a real thing. But if you are actively paying off debt, are you doing it as quickly as possible? Or are you taking the more leisurely route like we are? So if you are doing it as quickly as possible, then you need to understand that taking a trip is going to impact that. If you're doing it at a more leisurely pace, it might not be as big of a deal. The sixth factor to consider is, do you have some sort of bonus points or a plan to make the trip cheaper? For example, the credit card I talked about previously. A lot of people have travel credit cards because, hey, not for nothing, but trying to rent a car without a credit card is next to impossible. There's like one car rental place that will allow you to reserve it with a debit card. So a lot of people carry credit cards for travel. That's okay. I'm not anti-credit card. You just need to know if credit card's right for you. But that's another video for a whole other time. The seventh factor to consider is, it's going to take you longer to pay off the debt. And so it is imperative that you understand that taking a vacation will slow down your debt payoff. For us, we've taken 3 trips to Colombia during our debt payoff, and each trip adds 1 full month extra to paying off the debt. For many people, just knowing those numbers helps them decide if a vacation at this time is right for them. If the planned time to pay off debt is 9 months, but you would be adding 3 months to your payoff, it might not be worth it for you to travel at that time. But if taking a vacation each year adds 3 months and you will be paying off debt for the course of 5 years, then those 3 extra months might not be such a big deal to you. So once you've considered everything, then you need to make a plan to save up for all the expenses. And if you don't know where to start with your travel spending plan, I actually created a detailed template that you can use. So when you're planning your trip, you won't forget anything. Because if you know me at all, I'm pretty detailed. And this is the same spending plan that my family uses when we are going to create a trip for wherever we're going to go. So then the tip that I have for you and for everyone, and you see me do this a lot, is once you've worked through that spending plan and you come up with that total number, you take 25% of that number and add it on top. Because I like to have too much rather than not enough. And having that extra 25% will eliminate freak out if you go a little bit over your budget. And it allows you to do the thing that you didn't even know existed that everybody and their mother says you have to do while you're there. There's always something. It allows you to eat in a nicer restaurant if you choose to do that. It allows you to not freak out. It's calming. And it doesn't mean you have to spend it. And in fact, we came back from our last trip from Colombia with $1,000 left over, which we immediately put to debt. So then you're going to take that total number plus that additional 25%, and you're going to divide it by the number of months that you have until you're going to take the trip. If it's in January and you're traveling in June, you have February, March, April, and May. 4 months, not 6 months. 4 months to save up. Don't make the mistake of counting the month you're actually in as 1 month and the month you're going to travel as 1 month. those aren't part of your savings time, because if you are creating a spending plan every single month, that spending plan's already been set for this month. You can't magically pull money out. And the same holds true for the month you'll be traveling in. You are actually going to need that money in a lot of cases ahead of time. So going ahead and having that money saved up in advance will be exceptionally helpful. And if you can start saving in advance enough that you can buy your plane tickets, if you're going to be traveling by plane 6 months prior to when you're traveling, it will be beneficial to you. So now this is really, really, really super important. If you don't have enough time to save, you shouldn't be taking the trip. And I'm sorry, I don't mean to spoil it for you, but if you cannot pay cash for it, you should not be taking it. So I know a lot of credit cards do have like double points and everything. When I say pay cash for it, you can put it on a credit card for the points and then immediately transfer the money at the end of your trip. That's fine. I got no issue with that if you're one of those people. But again, only be using credit cards if you are fiscally responsible. And no, pulling money out of your emergency fund is not appropriate for paying cash for your trip. If you want to rush to save some money, like this is a last minute trip that you really want to do, you can sell something or maybe pick up an extra side hustle like babysitting or dog walking, or you can have a garage sale, sell stuff on Poshmark or Facebook Marketplace. Maybe you can come up with a cheaper version of the exact same trip, or maybe just come up with a cheaper version of the same trip. But again, under no circumstances should you be using a credit card or a bank loan to fund your vacation. You're better off to postpone your vacation and start saving up now and then take it when you are prepared, like a year from now, than putting it on a credit card. So I'll see you in the next one.